From WisPolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Hello, everybody. This is Kate Morton with WisPolitics here with a Capital Chats podcast brought to you by Spectrum. Today, I'm here with my colleague Adam Kelnhofer to talk about an interview he did with Corrections Committee Chair Michael Schraa. So, Adam, we've heard a lot about our prisons lately. What did you guys talk about?
Hi, Kate. Yeah, so we did talk about state prisons and primarily kind of what some of the issues are with state prisons right now, which has a lot to do with high vacancy rates at some of Wisconsin's maximum security prisons. We also touched on a little bit about what his committee plans to tackle next in the upcoming months. So let's just jump right into the interview and hear what Schraa had to say. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another WisPolitics Capital Chats podcast brought to you by Spectrum. Today, I am joined by Representative Michael Schraa, who is the Assembly Corrections Committee Chair. He is a Republican from Oshkosh. So, Representative Schraa, what's going on with the current state of prisons right now? If you could give us a brief, just kind of summary of how the state of Wisconsin prisons are right now, what would you say?
Yeah, well, we've got about 22,000 people that are incarcerated. We have a number of facilities that are fairly old, but it is pretty expensive to build a new facility. We're probably looking in the area of $750 million to $1 billion to build a new correctional facility. So to give you an overall picture, in the last budget, I pushed really hard for a $13 an hour raise because we were at crisis levels with vacancy rates. We just could not find employees, and the employees that were in the facilities were working a ton of overtime and people were burning out. So I was able to actually be very successful. We got the $13 an hour raise, and you can see that already. It's having a positive effect. Vacancy rates across the board are coming down in all the facilities except Waupun Correctional, and that is in my district. That being the oldest facility in the state of Wisconsin. And that's currently right now at about 56% vacancy rate. And they are taking a couple security personnel from other facilities and bringing them in to help out. But all the other, almost every single facility, whether it be maximum security or medium, are all down. We just graduated 214 individuals that went through the academy that will be added to the different facilities. And we talked to Department of Corrections yesterday, and they have more applications right now than they know what to do with. So looking in the future, I think it's very positive for staff. In the next budget, we were not able to get raises for everybody. We took the most critical, and that was security staff. So in the next budget, we're gonna, that's one of my top priorities, is to get raises for teachers, nurses, and food service and community corrections. So I think things are looking positive, and right now I'm very pleased with kind of where things have transpired since the budget. All the years that I was calling for raises, and my colleagues finally listened, and we got it in the budget, and it's exactly happening the way that I said it would. The facilities are filling up, more people are going into corrections. So that aspect, very positive.
Yeah. So you actually touched on one area I really wanted to talk about, the vacancy rate at Waupun. Looking at the DOC numbers right now, and it's the vacancy rate for those security staffs. Those would be just officers and sergeants, basically. They're at 56.2% vacancy rate.
Yep.
How do you, like you said, the raises have helped in a lot of areas, but that vacancy rate is still quite high. How do you get that number to come down?
Well, that's a tricky question because when a person can go through the academy and come in and start working at $33 an hour, that $13 an hour raise helped across the board. But now people, I think, are thinking, I'd rather work at a newer facility, or I'd rather work in Oshkosh or Dodge rather than the oldest facility in Oshkosh or in Waupun. And even though there's a $5 an hour add-on for a vacancy rate over 40%, and then an additional $2 if you're coming from a medium security prison, that's another $7 you'd be making. So, you'd be looking at $39, making $39 an hour right out of the academy. And that could be signaling, something in the future that we're going to have to look at. I know that the city of Waupun was built around that particular prison. And I do not represent that area anymore with the new district. And, I think we're going to have to take some serious looks at what we're going to do with Green Bay or Waupun. Are we going to invest $1 billion to build a new facility? Will the governor even approve the funding for a new facility? So those are all questions that kind of are up in the air, but it's definitely concerning. It's understandable. And I'm hoping with more and more applications, the numbers are going to come down, the vacancy rate numbers, and hopefully that will help at Waupun also.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to keep an eye on the vacancy rates and the whole situation there. A lot of people have been talking about for quite a few years trying to build a new maximum security facility to kind of consolidate Green Bay and Waupun, which are the two oldest facilities in the state, built before 1900, actually. How likely do you think that plan is to happen, and how long do you think it might take? Would it take an administration change at the gubernatorial level, or what would it take?
Yeah, I think from my indications, the governor would push back pretty hard if we wanted to build a new facility. If we could guarantee that we were going to shut two facilities down and maybe not add any beds to the number, so the total number from Waupun and Green Bay, combine that and maybe build a facility that would be a little bit smaller or very close, then maybe we could get something done. But I think when he ran for governor and, he talked about releasing half of the prison population over time, I think that's a non-starter, right now. But we have to have that conversation.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to watch how that kind of conversation shapes up. We are actually seeing the prison population increase, post-COVID, because the Evers administration tried to release nonviolent offenders, and now kind of that population is going back up to pre-pandemic levels. So
yeah.
I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the lockdowns and what DOC calls movement restrictions at Waupun and Green Bay. The Evers administration and Secretary Carr, still part of the Evers administration, announced a plan late last year to try and lift some of those movement restrictions at Waupun and Green Bay. How is that plan going, and when are those lockdowns going to be completely lifted?
Yeah, from my understanding, the lockdowns are, there is some improvement. What you have to understand, there's two sides to the story. And the whole reason the lockdowns went into place is because there were, and I'm going to call it a handful, and that could be 25 or that could be 200. There were a number of inmates, long-term inmates, that probably have no chance of being released because of the heinous crimes that they've committed, that just started to push back against the security staff. And they have what's called a standing count in prison. And it's for the health of the the inmate, and it's also for the safety and knowing, where the population is at, where individuals are at. And they go around and you're supposed to stand to make sure that, you're not passed out on your bed. And individuals with COVID, when COVID happened, they were starting to put blankets up over the bars, and they were refusing to get up. And there was just general chaos and pushing back against the security officers. And that's really why it was a safety issue that this went into effect. And then when you only have 56%, when you have a 56% vacancy rate, you are very short on staff. So it's really hard. If we were at 100% staff levels, they would get their rec time. They would get the proper bathing time, and they'd be going to the schools and they'd be going to their jobs. But that facility, how can you operate when you're looking at, 44% of the employees that you're supposed to have? It puts a lot of pressure on them. And even bringing in correctional staff from the other facilities, we're still at a high vacancy rate. So until we get this taken care of, and until there's some give and take from the individuals that are incarcerated, I think it's got to go both ways. I don't think DOC and the administration wants any lawsuits, and they understand that, these guys are reaching out to their families saying, hey, I haven't had a shower in a week and I haven't been to rec. But, the problem is you've got two people in a cell. One of them doesn't want to get up. The other one wants to comply. But the guy that doesn't want to get up is telling his roommate, don't you stand up, So I don't know if maybe you put all the bad actors in one cell block, so that you're not penalizing the people that are, trying to be compliant and, just go about their day. And I'm not the warden. I'm not the secretary. So these are decisions they have to make. And, hopefully the right decisions are being made.
Yeah. Okay. So I know we don't have a ton of time left on this show, but you are the chair of the Corrections Committee.
Right.
If you could, summarize in just very briefly, what are some of a couple of the biggest areas that you want to tackle with your committee in the near future?
Well, I think at the end of session, we had two bills, AB 181, the earned release bill, and AB 183, the reentry bill. From what I'm hearing, the reentry bill is probably going to be signed. The Senate 181 is going to have to make it through the Senate. That is some very low-hanging fruit of criminal justice reform, that if we don't do some things like that, then we absolutely will be spending $1 billion to build a new facility. So that's going to be an indication what we're going to be working on next session. I think a lot of it is going to depend on the maps and how many individuals come back. I'll throw it out again. We're going to miss Rep. Goyke, even though he's on the other side of the aisle. He's a good friend and he's passionate about criminal justice reform. So hopefully somebody from their side stands up and fills his boots. But what we saw at the end with the Dems coming in, two Democrats came in with these 10 bills. They did a press conference without even coming to me and talking to me about any of the bills. They came to me after the fact. Well, I'm not going to be able to get any of those bills passed if you don't work with a member of the majority. And so I think it was a stunt by Clancy and Madison. And unfortunately, because they both serve on my committee, and if they really wanted to get something done, and we're going to have to work together next session bipartisanly to get anything done, they should have come to me. So I think we're going to have some good ideas. There were a lot of bills that never even made it to a hearing or to the floor. So, I think next session, bearing all of us come back, I think we're going to have an exciting committee on corrections.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining me on today's show. Representative,
Okay.
pleasure to have you on.
All right, Adam. Thanks a lot.
All right, Adam, thanks for taking the time to do that interview. In the meantime, if our listeners or readers want to learn more about the state of our prisons, they can head to wispolitics.com.
That's right, Kate. But for now, I'm Adam Kelnhofer.
I'm Kate Morton.
Thanks for tuning in to WisPolitics Capital Chats, brought to you by Spectrum.